County sounded at night before everything changed. It wasn't silent. It breathed. Cicadas stitched the dark together, freight trains sighed miles away, and the river worked patiently at its banks. It was a place where people believed time moved slower, where habits hardened into traditions, and where nothing truly terrible was supposed to happen. That belief lasted until the summer of 2012, when the quiet hours began to feel like a warning instead of a comfort. Bryer County sat in the northern bend of a Midwestern state, a place of soybean fields and low hills, anchored by the town of Latham Ridge. The population hovered around 12,000 if you counted the unincorporated roads and the farmhouses tucked behind windbreaks. People left their keys in their trucks. Kids rode bikes after dark. The sheriff's office closed one of its 2 night desks most evenings because nothing ever happened that couldn't wait until morning. Then, on the last Saturday of June, the waiting ended. At dawn, a jogger found a car parked at an odd angle along County Route E, its front tires in the ditch, its rear lights still glowing faintly. The engine was cold. The driver's door stood open. Inside, a purse sat on the passenger seat, its contents undisturbed. There were no skid marks, no signs of a collision, no blood. There was simply a car that did not belong there, and a woman who did not belong to the morning. Her name was Leah Carver. She was 34 years old, a physical therapist at the regional clinic, a volunteer at the animal shelter, a woman known for remembering birthdays and bringing soup to sick neighbors. She lived alone in a small ranch house on Juniper Street, a place she had moved into after her divorce 2 years earlier. She had been seen the night before at a fundraising barbecue near the river, smiling in photographs, leaving just after 10. By noon, Bryer County knew she was missing. The first hours were hopeful. Deputies assumed a medical emergency, a wrong turn, a breakdown, and a ride. Search teams walked the ditches and the tree lines. Dive volunteers checked the river where it widened and slowed. Friends retraced her evening. Her phone last pinged near the fundraiser site, then went quiet. The person in the car suggested she had not planned to go far. The open door suggested she had left in a hurry or under the belief she would return. By nightfall, hope began to thin. The sheriff at the time, Harold Wren, had been in law enforcement for nearly 3 decades. He had seen accidents, domestic disputes, a handful of overdoses. He had not seen a woman vanish from a county road like a thought forgotten mid-sentence. He called in state investigators and requested aerial support. He did not say it out loud, but he felt the shift, the sense that something had crossed a line no one knew existed. 3 days later, a fisherman found Leah Carver in a stand of cottonwoods a mile downstream from the fundraiser grounds. She had been concealed with brush, positioned carefully, as if someone had taken time to make a decision about how she should be found. There were no obvious signs of violence visible from a distance. The county coroner would later say she died sometime early Saturday morning. The town gathered in small knots that week, speaking softly in grocery aisles and parking lots. Parents tightened curfews, doors locked. The river, once a place for picnics and fireworks, became something else. It held a memory now. Investigators worked the scene with a seriousness that felt foreign to Bryer County. Tire impressions were cast, fibers were collected, the car was towed and processed inch by inch. The fundraiser site was combed again. Hundreds of interviews followed, many of them redundant, all of them necessary. Everyone wanted to help. Everyone wanted the person responsible to be someone from somewhere else. What complicated things from the start was the absence of chaos. There was no frenzy in the evidence, no shattered glass, no trail to follow. Whoever took Leah Carver had done so quietly, deliberately, and without leaving much behind. That suggested planning, or at least confidence. Attention turned, as it often does, to the familiar. Leah's ex-husband, Mark Carver, lived 40 miles away in a city where he worked as a sales manager. Their divorce had been amicable on paper, complicated in practice. Friends described lingering tension. Investigators described an alibi that held. His phone records placed him at a company retreat the entire weekend. His coworkers confirmed it. The line of inquiry closed without fanfare. Then there was Ethan Price, a man Leah had dated briefly the previous fall. He had a history of impulsive behavior and a recent arrest for disorderly conduct. He cooperated fully, submitted to a search of his apartment, allowed his devices to be examined. Nothing tied him to the night Leah disappeared. His name faded from the conversation. Weeks passed, leads thinned. The state team scaled back. The sheriff's office continued, driven by a mixture of duty and the weight of living among the unanswered. The case might have gone cold if not for a traffic stop in early August. A deputy pulled over a pickup for a broken taillight on Route 9, just outside Latham Ridge. The driver was a man named Daniel Rowe, 39, a maintenance technician who worked nights at the grain elevator. He lived alone in a rental house near the county line. The stop was routine until the deputy noticed a stack of laminated passes on the passenger seat, the kind used for local events. One of them was from the fundraiser by the river. The deputy mentioned the case casually, the way officers sometimes do, fishing for reactions. Rowe's hands tightened on the wheel. His breathing changed. It was subtle. The kind of thing you might miss if you weren't trained to watch for it. The deputy wrote the warning and let him go, but he noted the behavior in his report. That report landed on an investigator's desk the next morning. Daniel Rowe was not on anyone's list. He had no criminal record beyond minor traffic violations. He was quiet, described by neighbors as polite and forgettable. He had attended the fundraiser, like hundreds of others. His job put him near County Route E during overnight hours. None of that was enough on its own. Together, it made him interesting. Investigators requested a volunteer interview. Rowe agreed. He arrived on time, dressed neatly, spoke in complete sentences. He said he left the fundraiser around 9:30, went home, watched television, and slept. He said he did not know Leah Carver beyond seeing her around town. He said he wished he could help. They asked about the passes in his truck. He said he collected them as souvenirs. He smiled when he said it. The smile did not reach his eyes. The interview ended without incident, but investigators noticed small inconsistencies, the kind that don't register in isolation, a timeline that shifted by minutes, a description of the weather that did not match records, a claim about a television program that had not aired that night. They applied for a search warrant. What they found in Daniel Rowe's house did not look like a crime scene. It looked lived in, clean, orderly. But in a storage room off the laundry area, they found a tarp with river silt embedded in its folds. In the garage, they found a pair of boots with mud consistent with the riverbank where Leah had been found. In a drawer, they found a prepaid phone, powered off, its call history wiped. The forensic results took weeks. During that time, the county held its breath. The turning point came from an unexpected place. A volunteer reviewing footage from a traffic camera near the river noticed a vehicle passing twice in the early hours of Saturday morning. The angle was poor, the image grainy, but the vehicle's roof rack was distinctive. Investigators compared it to registrations in the county. Only 2 matched. 2 were cleared quickly. The third belonged to Daniel Rowe. Confronted with the evidence, Rowe asked for a lawyer. The interview stopped. The case moved forward without him. The arrest, when it came, did not feel like closure. It felt like the opening of a door no one wanted to look through. People searched their memories for signs they had missed, moments that might make sense now. They found none. That was the hardest part, the idea that someone could move among them without ripples. At trial, the prosecution laid out a narrative built on accumulation rather than spectacle. They argued that Rowe had noticed Leah at the fundraiser, followed her when she left, offered assistance when her car went into the ditch, and then taken advantage of her trust. They did not dwell on the manner of her death. They focused on opportunity, on the quiet choices that led to an irreversible end. The defense challenged the evidence, suggested coincidence, pointed to the lack of eyewitnesses. They reminded the jury that Broward County was small, that overlap was inevitable. They questioned the reliability of behavioral observations and the interpretation of camera footage. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When the verdict was read, there was no outburst, no visible relief, just a collective exhale, a recognition that the question of who had done it had been answered, even if the question of why remained. Daniel Rowe was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In the months that followed, Broward County tried to return to itself. The fundraiser resumed the next year, though attendance was there. The river reclaimed its place in daily life, though some people avoided the bend where the cottonwoods grew. Leah Carver's house was sold to a young couple who painted the front door blue. Time passed as it always does, but it did not erase what had happened. It layered over it, the way sediment settles at the bottom of a river, changing the shape without changing the depth. I think about Broward County sometimes, about the quiet hours, and how they can hold both peace and danger. I think about how crimes like this do not announce themselves with noise, how they slip into the spaces between routines. I think about the people who live with the knowledge that someone they waved to at the grocery store carried a secret capable of destroying a life. There is no moral to draw that will make sense of it all. There is only the understanding that safety is often assumed until it is broken, and that communities, like individuals, are defined as much by how they endure as by how they begin. In Broward County, the nights still breathe, the cicadas still stitch the dark together, the trains still sigh. But the quiet is no longer taken for granted. It is listened to carefully, as if it might speak.